Hello everyone, this is Yoan and welcome to a new video. In this episode, I would love to share this double square in a square quilt project. This is a fun variation from the square in a square quilt project that I shared sometimes back. So this one right here. Now with this quilt, there are two squares in a square, hence the name double square in a square. And for the patchwork of this quilt, you will need 7 half a yard of fabric. I used the collection from the art gallery fabrics. I made this quilt for my son, so you can see that I use more masculine color palette. So the finished measurements of this quilt are approximately 57.5 inch by 66 inch. You can follow the pattern to a T. This time I have the PDF available for you, so you can go ahead and download that. Or you may also add your own tweak to it. So if you want, you can add more variety of fabrics, or you can increase or decrease the sizing. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and without further ado, let's get started. Let's prepare the fabric. For this project, you will need 7 half a yard. For the color tone, I picked 3 dark, 2 medium, and 2 light. Now we're gonna do the cutting. Fold your fabric in half on the grain line, so the selvage ends should be touching each other. I'm gonna use this 24-inch long ruler. First, we're gonna straighten up the edges of this fabric. So I'm just gonna trim off about ½ an inch. This way we have a nice, clean and straight edges. First, we're gonna measure 3.5 inch. So I'm lining the edges of the fabric with the 3.5 inch point of my ruler. And then cut. Now let's set this aside, and then we're gonna measure another 3.5 inch and then cut. Next, we're gonna measure 1.5 inch and cut. Now we're gonna measure another 1.5 inch and cut. Now you wanna measure 4 inch and then cut. Now measure 1 inch and then cut. And then measure another 1 inch and cut. So you should have in total of 7 strips, 2 3.5 inch strips, 2 1.5 inch strips, 1 4-inch strip, and 2 1-inch strips. First, we're gonna cut fabric 1 and fabric 2. So you wanna take the 3.5 inch strip, trim off the selvage end, take your ruler and measure 9 inch and then cut. And then you want to cut 2 more pieces. Now we're going to measure 5 inch and then cut. And then we're going to make 2 more. So measure 5 inch and then cut. And another 5 inch and cut. Now you have 3 9-inch strips and 3 5-inch strips. Repeat the exact same way for the second 3.5 inch wide strip. So you want to extract 3 9-inch strips and 3 5-inch strips. So you should end up with 6 9-inch strips or fabric 1 and 6 5-inch strips or fabric 2. Now we're gonna repeat the same for the 1.5 inch strips. So you wanna extract 3 9-inch strips and 3 5-inch strips, and do the same to the second strip. So you should have 6 9-inch by 1.5 inch strips or fabric 3 and 6 5-inch by 1.5 inch strips or fabric 4. From the 4-inch strip, we're gonna extract 6 4-inch squares. So go ahead and trim off the selvage end and then measure 4 inches and then cut 5 more of this. So you should have 6 4-inch squares. Set aside the remaining strip. From the 1-inch strip, we're gonna extract fabric 5 and fabric 6. So let's work on fabric 5. Measure 5 inch and then cut. So you will need to cut 12 of this. So in one strip, you should be able to extract 8 pieces of 5-inch strips. With the second 1-inch strip, I'm gonna cut 4 more of the 5-inch strips. And here I've already cut all 12 strips. Now let's work on fabric 6. Now this time you will need to cut 4-inch strips, and we will also need 12 pieces. From this remaining strip, you should be able to extract about 5 pieces. Take the leftover 4-inch strip. Now let's measure 1 inch and then cut. And then you want to cut 6 more so that you will get in total of 12 pieces of fabric 6. And here are all the 7 panels. I apologize if I don't put them in proper order, but you get the idea. So let's go ahead and cut the rest of the fabrics exactly the same way. Lay out the fabric pieces just like shown here. So you want to start with fabric 7, followed with fabric 5 and 6. So fabric 5 and 6 should be the same fabric and they should be sort of framing the fabric 7. Now position fabric 2 and 4 opposite from each other, just like so. Or you can do it this way too, it doesn't really matter as long as they are opposite. And facing fabric 4. Now lay fabric 1 and 3 just like so. Or you can do the opposite, it doesn't really matter. And of course fabric 1, 2, 3 and 4 should be the same kind. Now if some of the fabric 7 of yours have directional print, just like this fabric here, and you want that to have consistent orientation throughout the quilt, you may want to purposely differentiate the layout. Simply shift the position of fabric 1, 2, 3 and 4 as long as fabric 1 and 3 are opposite from each other and fabric 2 and 4 are opposite from each other. You don't have to do this if your fabric has no directional prints, since we can easily just rotate the blocks when we do the layout later. I'm not really too worried about the rest of the panels when it comes to the directional print, except of panel 7 because it's kind of the center of the block, and the rest of the panels are just gonna blend in and give that unique look to the quilt. Now let's go ahead and start piecing this block. So starting by sewing panel 7 with panel 6, and of course we're going to use 1/4 inch of seam allowance throughout the piecing of the patchwork. Press the seams towards panel 6. Now sew the second panel 6 to the opposite side. Now we're going to sew panel 5. Press the seams towards panel 5. Next we're going to sew panel 2 and 4. So I'm going to start by sewing panel 4. Press the seams towards panel 4. Now let's sew panel 1 and panel 3. So I'm just going to start by sewing panel 3. Press the seams towards panel 3. Now let's sew panel 1. Press the seams towards panel 1. And there you go, the block is done. So let's go ahead and piece all the blocks together, and you should make in total of 42 blocks. When you lay out the blocks, you want to lay them out somewhat arbitrarily. To make your life easier, you may want to purposely making sure that the seams won't be matching, so that you don't have to worry so much about matching the seams as you sew the blocks together later. So you want to lay out your blocks in 7 rows, and each row should have 6 blocks. And you can see here how all the inner squares are kind of scattered. So you don't have to follow the direction of each blocks exactly as the pattern. You may vary yours. Once you're happy with the layout of the blocks, you want to piece them together 1 row at a time. When you press the seams, you want to alternate the pressing direction of each row, just like indicated by the arrows. And of course, we do this so that when we sew all the rows together, we can easily nestle the seams. Now, if you want, you can use some pins, so nest the seams and then pin before you sew. Or you can match the seams as you go, just like what I do here. And then you can press the seams towards any direction. It doesn't really matter at this point. Once all the blocks are sewn together, we're gonna attach the border. We're gonna start by sewing the shorter border, or border 1. I use 3.5 inch wide border. You can go wider or smaller. It's totally up to you. I like to pin right on the center point and the side edges, and then sew with the border strip facing up with 1/4 inch of seam allowance, of course. Press the seams towards the border fabric. Once you've sewn border 1, of course you want to sew border 2 to finish your quilt top. Then you want to layer your quilt top with a piece of batting and the backing fabric, of course, and then quilt as desired. I've remotioned this quilt with the loop to the loop design. This time though, I stitched the loops larger than usual just to make the quilting goes quicker. finish the quilt with your favorite binding method. And that's pretty much it, guys. And here is my finished quilt. I'm very happy with the outcome. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you did enjoy this tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any future upload. And until next time, goodbye.